Hey everyone, welcome to the Freak Review where we talk about good music. So lately, I've been mostly reviewing pretty well-established bands. Maybe they're not all household names, but you know, Amberlin, Deftones, they have a pretty strong cult following, to say the least. And you know, that makes sense. They tell me that if I review popular things, I'll get more hits, and that's apparently all I want these days. But one of my favorite parts about listening to music and critiquing it is telling people about a great band that they probably don't know. I'm kind of an anti-hipster. I love listening to obscure stuff, but I want everyone else to enjoy it too, and I want all the bands that I like to be popular. So, having discovered a pretty awesome up-and-coming band not too long ago, let's get right to it. The band is from Indian Lakes, as in that's the name of the band, not that they're actually from an Indian lake, though I suppose they might be. And the name of the album is Able Bodies. So the first question when discussing one of these lesser-known bands is, what genre do they fall into? And that answer is pretty easy. From Indian Lakes are an indie, alternative-ish band. Occasionally get a couple dashes of post-hardcore, but mostly it's pretty straightforward, guitar-centric indie fare. The next question is, what more established bands do they sound like? And here the answer gets a little bit tricky. You take the brooding atmospheres and poignancy of Brand New and As Cities Burn, with the lyrical contemplation and gentle crooning of Manchester Orchestra, and you get a little bit of the delicacy of Sleeping at Last. What does this get you? You get a lot of very subtle, nuanced songs with great musicianship that's not all that flashy, and Joey Vannucci's passionate vocals and very, very personal lyrics. Sounds pretty great, right? I mean, yeah, it kind of is. There's a level of maturity here that most bands just don't have, especially not on their second full-length album. And yeah, they self-released it, but you'll notice they're not using that as an excuse for bad production. Everything here sounds crystal clear. Thing is, sometimes there's just too much maturity and subtlety, and it results in a couple boring songs here and there. Take these hands, what have I made them do? And it was that kind of restraint that initially made this album pretty hard for me to swallow. I desperately wanted a big impact moment in a lot of the songs, and it didn't seem to be there. A lot of the bigger bands do that. They're trained in the art of the big impact moment. And then I listened to this again. Oh look, a big catchy chorus that's still personal without feeling fake. Oh hey, now we have something with a lot of oomph to it. I wanted to call this album homogeneous initially, but for the most part every song does a good job of establishing its own individual identity. The band's just as good with acoustic guitars as electric, whether it's a lighthearted, jaunty little ditty,
the photographs I've taken only blur the faces out, and my mind can't seem to hold on to anyone,
or in Heart Wrench and Cry Despair, whose emotion is only enhanced by its sparseness. I have to applaud the vocalist Vannucci on this album. He has a tendency to ask multiple rhetorical questions in a row to fill up a verse, but honestly, he's talking about a lot of big, heavy topics, and all the questions seem appropriate. He's talking about his place in the world, the meaning of life and death and God, and what love actually means, and he sounds so real. And not in the normal way of a band sounding real, which is, you know, a lot of vocal histrionics and showing off and going a little bit over the top. This just sounds believable, and everything sounds exactly the way it should. Speaking of which, absolutely beautiful song. All of the restraint throughout the rest of the album explodes in this gorgeous climax. It seems like a perfectly natural resolution, and it makes you realize just how well the album has flowed up until that point. It definitely takes a few listens to get it, but make no mistake, everyone, Able Bodies is worth the investment. And interestingly enough, I still can't shake the feeling that the band has few cards left to play. There's an overwhelming sense of untapped potential. Maybe the band needs to cut loose and channel all their masterful atmospheres into true instrumental tracks, because obviously they're all really good at what they do. Maybe they need to add some more instruments to the mix. You notice there's not a lot of strings or auxiliary instrumentation in this album. I think maybe they could use a little bit of it. Maybe Joey will actually find the answer to all these questions he's asking. Probably not. Your guess is as good as mine. All speculation aside, I think you should listen to this album approximately now. It's really that good. Final verdict is an 8 out of 10, with the best songs being Till I Can Walk, Your Son, and Below. Do this band a favor and check them out. I'm not plugging them because I know anyone in the band or because they're from my hometown or anything. I just think this band deserves more exposure than they're getting. I'm done with that. Go listen to good music, everybody.